The story begins with a man saying that he hates the world. The man was abandoned the moment he was born, and he was treated like an animal by other people. He was never given a reason to like the world. Thanks to this, he did not trust anyone. We see the man fighting some men in an alley. The man said that he is used to being alone. After he beat the men up, he left their bodies in the alley. On January 1st, 2020, the world changed into a game. Monsters came out of dungeons that appeared all over the world. Many cities were destroyed and thousands of people died. Fortunately for humans, divine beings called Nimbus appeared and granted the minority of people a special power called the Authority. The people who received the Authority awakened as players who could destroy dungeons. People believed that the ones who had special powers would save the world, but instead, the players took advantage of the chaos and used it to fulfill their desires. Due to this situation, people began to believe that the world was coming to an end. The man was not surprised by what was happening in the world. He believed that this is the same world he has been living in, a world where there is nobody to trust. This was what the man believed until he met Lee Se-jun. He is one of the first players in the world. He is a knight selected by the executioner of Holy Light. He is the world's strongest player. He protected the weak from monsters no matter what. In a fight against a gigantic monster, Se-jun unsheathed his sword and split the monster into two. After killing the monster, Se-jun revealed to our protagonist that he is going to kill the final boss of the game and end it all together. He told our hero that he is going to save the world. The man was surprised to hear this. Se-jun created a guild called the Messiah Guild. Most of the heroes in the world joined the guild with the aim of saving the world. This was the first time the man met comrades who he could trust and follow with this group of people. The man believed that he could change the world. At the gate of the final dungeon, the man was happy to tell Se-jun that this will be their last battle. Se-jun told the man whose name is Kim Woo-jin that today will be his last battle. Woo-jin did not understand what Se-jun meant. When he turned around to ask him, Se-jun stabbed him with his sword. He told Woo-jin he would have never made it to the final dungeon without his help. When Woo-jin fell on his knees, a status window appeared and revealed to him that he has fallen under Bamung's curse, and due to this, his resistance and defensive power have decreased by 90%. While shaking in pain, Woo-jin asked Se-jun if he has been planning to kill him from the start. A woman stepped out of the shadow and told Woo-jin that everything disappears once the game comes to an end. All the authorities, items and dungeons which they have accumulated will disappear. She told Woo-jin that people would have no reason to obey them anymore. The woman whose name is Park Shin-hai moved close to Woo-jin's ear and told him that once the dungeons are gone, they will not be able to rule the world. Woo-jin was shocked to hear this. He could not believe how terrible these people were. He screamed Se-jun's name out of anger. He could not believe that he was played by Se-jun. The moment he screamed, a viper's poison spread throughout his body. Woo-jin spat out some blood thanks to the poison. Shin-hai was surprised that Woo-jin had enough energy to activate the poison that the sword produced. She revealed to Woo-jin that the other people immediately died after they were stabbed. At that moment, Woo-jin realized that Se-jun and Shin-hai have killed all his comrades and teammates. Woo-jin was extremely angry to hear this. He could not believe that they killed their comrades just because they got in the way of their plans. Shin-hai told Woo-jin that they have killed the powerful people who can stop them. Now they can easily take over the world. Woo-jin could not believe what he was hearing. He asked Se-jun to create an excuse for his actions. Se-jun ignored him and walked away with Shin-hai. Woo-jin was very angry that he trusted someone. He fell on the ground and died. When he died, a status window appeared in front of him and said that the game is starting. Woo-jin hears the voice of multiple people talking. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a truck. He did not understand what was going on. The last thing he remembered was getting stabbed by Se-jun. Now he is in a truck, and he is wearing a police vest. He thought that he was dreaming. The driver of the truck stopped the truck when he saw monsters on the road. The monsters had destroyed countless properties and killed a lot of people. The driver hit the truck to alert the soldiers inside. He told them that there is a herd of orcs on the road. The soldiers immediately grabbed their guns and prepared to attack. When the orcs saw the soldiers, they began to run towards them. The captain of the soldiers told them that they have little ammo, so they have to be careful when they shoot. While the captain was talking, he and his fellow soldiers heard a gunshot. When they turned around to see who it was, it turned out to be Woo-jin. The other orcs were surprised to see their fellow orc dead. They rushed to attack Wu Jin out of anger. Wu Jin carefully aimed and shot the orcs in the head. One of the orcs successfully came close to Wu Jin. It tried to hit Wu Jin with its giant stick, but Wu Jin easily dodged the attack by jumping. While he was in the air, he shot the orc in the head. When the last orc saw how Wu Jin killed its friends, it turned around and tried to run away. Wu Jin easily shot it in the head. The other soldiers were very surprised by how Wu Jin took care of the orcs. They could not believe that they had such a strong teammate. After Wu Jin killed the orcs, he accepted that he was not in a dream because everything felt quite vivid. The captain of the soldiers walked up to Wu Jin and asked him why he did not wait to listen to his orders. Wu Jin was still confused that he returned to the past. He walked past his captain and did not respond to him. The captain and the soldiers could not understand why Wu Jin ignored them. They thought he was angry. After Wu Jin regained his composure, he remembered how he was betrayed by Se-jun and Shin-hai. While he was thinking of his situation, a status window appeared in front of him and told him that he is a player. A bright light shined in Wu Jin's eyes. The system displayed a window that showed the classes which Wu Jin could select. Wu Jin remembered that today was the day he became a player in his past life, but unlike in the past, Wu Jin is now given the option to choose from 3 different classes. He noticed that he was also allowed to choose a class called the Dark World Surrogate. People who have this class have the ability to control various kinds of poisons and curses. They can also control the undead. It is a class that allows one to create an undead army. Unlike other classes, this class has an omnipotent power. There was a player who was the strongest among the people who received the Dark World Surrogate. This player is Johan Jork, who is also known as the Immortal King. If Lee Se-jun is a hero, the Immortal King is a powerful monster. Wu Jin decided to pick the Dark World Surrogate as his class. He believed that he has to become a monster to kill Se-jun. A guild is a profit group for players. Among the guilds that exist, the Phoenix Guild is a guild that uses all forms of corruption to get power and money. They were able to become Korea's second-best guild through their power. Due to the corruption of the Phoenix Guild, people saw the Messiah Guild as a perfect and amazing place. At the Phoenix Guild headquarters, a man gives Wu Jin the guild contract. Wu Jin was surprised when he read the terms stated in the contract. He did not want to accept such terms, but he had no choice. He had to accept the offer because he needed to get some items. He asked the man how he is going to confirm if he is a player because no other person can see a player's status other than the player. The man brought out some skill cards that cannot be used by anyone other than a player of the Dark World Surrogate. The man asked Wu Jin to pick one so that he can see if he is truly a player. Among the skill cards presented to Wu Jin, a skill called Hematoxin captured Wu Jin's attention. The skill allows a player to turn their blood into poison. As the player's level increases, the poison becomes more lethal. Wu Jin was very happy to see this skill because it is very hard to encounter. It is a simple skill that becomes more useful when it is used with a blood golem. When Wu Jin accepted the skill card, he tore it and a bright light shined on him. This allowed the man to know that Wu Jin is a player. The system told Wu Jin that he has acquired the skill. In the next scene, we see Wu Jin in the past with his teammate. His teammates gossip about how Wu Jin has the worst personality among them. Wu Jin stops their gossip and told them to be ready to attack. When Wu Jin woke up, he realized that he was dreaming. He believed that since he returned to the past, his comrades must also be alive. At Gwanman Sports Park, soldiers were holding their guns tightly and were ready to shoot anyone. A bald man entered the sports park with a very nice car. The man greeted the 3 people that were waiting for him. These 3 people are players. The girl among them asked the bald man, whose name is Joseph, if they can trust him in a seductive way. She told Joseph that all of them are just entering a dungeon for the first time. Joseph told the girl not to worry. He told her that he has been to a dungeon 4 times. He asked the 3 players when the last member will be arriving. Immediately he said this, he and the other players hear an odd sound. When they turned around to see what caused it, they saw a car that was in a terrible shape. The car produced a lot of noise. One of the 3 players said that Wu Jin needs to be disciplined because he is late on his first day of the job. The girl said that Wu Jin should be thankful that they allowed him to join their party. The last player said that Wu Jin is a loser that was not even given the guild supply of items. He told the group to ignore Wu Jin and enter the dungeon by themselves. Joseph accepted this suggestion. At the briefing of the dungeon, A man told the players that the dungeon is an E-rank dungeon called Goblin Cave. The dungeon only allows 5 people to enter. The 5 people have to either be in level 10 or lower, and it can only be cleared after all the goblins are dead. The man advised the players to remember everything they saw. He told them to forfeit now if they want it because he cannot save them once they step into the dungeon. No one chose to forfeit. The man asked them to look into their inventory to check their items, while the players were looking at their inventory and chatting among each other. Woojin looked at their faces and realized that he does not know any one of them. To Woojin, this meant that he did not need to care about these people. After they were briefed about their mission, the players were asked to enter the dungeon. The girl was surprised by how the gate of the dungeon looked like. Joseph told her that she will be more surprised when she steps inside. When they stepped inside, their equipment appeared on their bodies. The newbies could not believe that they were transported to a new world. One of them said that he feels like he is in a game. Joseph told him that what is happening is real. He told the newbies to stay alert because they will die if they are not careful. While Joseph was talking to them, Woojin walked up to a tree to look at the marks on it. When he saw the marks, he could tell that there is a large number of goblins in this dungeon. Joseph walked up to Woojin and asked him to search the area while they set up the camp. Woojin accepted Joseph's orders. The newbie were surprised that Woojin accepted Joseph's orders. They expected him to cling to them. They thought that Woojin was stupid. Joseph told them that they are going to start hunting monsters immediately and take all the items for themselves. Woojin was not surprised that the team wanted to use him as bait. He smiled because he already expected them to behave this way. At the Messiah Guild headquarters, Shinhai welcomes everyone to the meeting. She says that she wants to introduce a new member to their group. When the new member stepped into the room, Yang Ji-ho was annoyed to see him. The new member introduced himself as Suzuki Aichi. When Aichi looked around the room, he saw a lot of familiar faces. He decided not to introduce himself further. Se-jun introduced himself to Aichi and welcomed him to the group. Aichi asked Se-jun what he wants him to do for the group in the future. Ji-ho was annoyed to hear this. He could not believe that Aichi would speak informally to Se-jun, who is the guildmaster. Ji-ho asked Se-jun why he recruited such an annoying man. Ji-ho decided that he has to punish Aichi. Aichi asked Ji-ho why he is angry. He asked him if he is still holding a grudge from the last time they met each other. Se-jun told them to stop arguing. When Ji-ho saw Se-jun's gaze, he got scared and sat down. When he sat down, he promised to kill Aichi for his arrogance. After everyone had calmed down, Shinhai asked Aichi about the task she assigned to him before. Aichi said that he will be able to find the location of the material in 3 days. Se-jun was impressed when he heard Aichi say that it will take him 3 days. In the dungeon, Woojin is looking at the marks which the goblins made on trees. He was surprised that the rumors he heard about goblins in his past life is true. He smiles when he remembered that this method of hunting was taught to him by Suzuki Aichi. Aichi told Woojin that any traces he sees in a dungeon can help him survive and clear the dungeon. Woojin understood that having information is important, but he believed that one simply has to be strong to clear a dungeon. Aichi told Woojin that no matter how strong he is, he will always have a weakness. Woojin was annoyed when he realized that the reason Aichi was training him was so that he could be a more effective hunting dog for the Messiah Guild. He vowed to use all Aichi's teachings to stab him in the back. When Woojin came down from the tree, something threw a rock at him. Woojin easily dodged the rock. He noticed that 3 goblins had surrounded him. Woojin was happy to see the goblins. He opened his inventory and brought out a short sword. He was very happy to see the goblins because he needed to try his new skill on something. He used the sword to cut his hand in order to cover it in his blood. One of the goblins rushed to attack Woojin with a stick. Woojin easily dodged the attack and used his sword to stab the goblin on its elbow. The goblin was affected by the skill immediately, but it was not ready to give up. It grit its teeth and attacked Woojin again. Woojin dodged the attack easily. He realized that the poison is not yet potent enough to kill in one cut. Another goblin rushed to attack Woojin. Woojin was able to evade the attack. He killed the goblin by throwing his sword to its head. The goblins were not a threat to Woojin because they have a simple attack pattern which is easy to read. Woojin knew that he had to stop testing his new skill because the goblins were slowly surrounding him. He put his hand into his inventory and brought out a whip. When the goblins saw the whip, they began to shake in fear. Woojin was happy that he bought this item before he entered this dungeon. The item is the Goblin Lord's Whip. It is a unique rank item. It can only be used by people in level 1 or higher, and it can give goblins unimaginable fear. While walking around in the dungeon, Joseph and the newbies hear something move in the forest. When the newbies turned around to check out the situation, they see a bunch of angry goblins running towards them with weapons. One of the goblins got close to the girl among them. The girl, who happens to be a magician, was terrified to see this. She tried to use her wand to defend herself. Fortunately for her, Joseph stabbed the goblin and saved her. He told the newbies to not be scared of a mere goblin. The newbies were very happy to hear this. In their eyes, Joseph was like a hero to them. Joseph told them to take a stance and prepare to fight the weak goblins. Immediately he said this, he contemplates on how he is lucky to have brought a long sword to the dungeon. He believed that he will be able to kill the goblins easily with his sword. As he prepares to attack the goblins, he noticed that his sword was stuck inside the goblin he stabbed. While struggling to remove his weapon, a goblin attacks him on the head with a huge stick. Joseph falls in the middle of the newbies. The newbies were shocked to see this. They could not believe that the man who was supposed to protect them was on the floor. The goblins moved close to Joseph and began to stab him. Joseph begged the newbies to save him. The newbies were shocked to hear this. They could not believe that the man who was supposed to protect them was begging for their help. The two men summoned their courage and rushed to attack the goblins. The scene shifts and we see someone slash a goblin. The other goblin was terrified to see this. The person who killed the goblin is Wu Jin. After seeing how Wu Jin had killed its comrades, the last goblin tried to run away. Unfortunately for it, Wu Jin used his whip to grab the goblin's neck. He tightened the whip around the goblin's neck and strangled it to death. The moment the goblin died, Wu Jin leveled up. After leveling up, Wu Jin receives a message from the system. The system tells him that the Dark World's surrogate is interested in him, and he has obtained an achievement called Striving Higher. Wu Jin smiles after leveling up. He says that the goblins are weaker than he thought. We see a large amount of dead goblins around Wu Jin. While looking at his whip, Wu Jin says that only stupid people will bring a heavy sword to fight goblins. He believes that a whip should be enough. The scene shifts and we see Joseph and the newbies covered in injuries. One of the newbies asks Joseph if he knows how Wu Jin is doing. Joseph tells the man that Wu Jin is probably dead because they have not received an update about his situation. While the girl was shaking in fear, the other man told Joseph that he is stupid for sending Wu Jin away. He told Joseph that an extra hand would have helped them in their situation. Joseph was angry to hear this. He and the other newbies began to argue. While they were arguing, they hear an odd sound in the woods. They immediately stood up and got into position. The scene shifts and we see Wu Jin leveling up while standing in the middle of some dead goblins. After leveling up, Wu Jin acquired a skill called Skeleton Disease. After getting the skill, he calls out for a book called Catalog. He picked up his new skill, which was given to him in form of a paper from the catalog. Wu Jin was surprised to see his new skill. He could not believe that he was able to acquire such a precious skill. Wu Jin was surprised to see the skill because it was one of the most powerful skills of the Johann Jork, the Immortal King. The skill allowed Johann to control an army of undead. While the skill was very powerful, it had a major flaw. This flaw allowed others to attack Johann. There was also a lot of restrictions that came with the skill. For example, only monsters killed directly by the caster can be used as an undead. Wu Jin decided to acquire the skill. He tore the paper and the system notified him that he has gotten the F-rank skill called Skeleton Disease. Because Wu Jin just attained the skill, he was only allowed to summon one undead. He walked up to one of the goblins he killed and placed his hand above its head. Immediately he did this, his skill was activated and a bright light shined from his hand. The moment the light shined from his hand, the goblin shed its skin and awoken as an undead soldier. Wu Jin was happy to see his new undead. He liked the deadly look in the eyes of his undead goblin. After seeing how his new undead soldier killed a goblin, Wu Jin says that he is disappointed with its performance. He wonders if the soldier's performance is poor because his magic stats is too low. He placed his hand on the undead's head and says that it is too weak for him to use as his main attack ability. While looking around, he sees the dead bodies of different players who have been to this dungeon dangling from a tree. While looking at the different corpses, he says that all monsters have one thing in common: they exist to inflict harm on people. He knows that there is no way goblins would go easy on new players. Thanks to this, he believes that he does not need to be merciful towards any monster. The scene shifts and we see Joseph and his team gather around a fire. Joseph said that he cannot believe that he lost to mere goblins. The newbies ignored this statement and asked him for their next course of action. One of the newbies told Joseph that they were too relaxed when they came into the dungeon. Instead of listening to the newbie, Joseph was focused on the fact that he could not be killed by mere goblins. He stood up and said that he will not die in such a pitiful way. The newbies were surprised when they looked at Joseph. Joseph told them that while they struggled to get to this point, they can certainly defeat the dungeon. Joseph asked them about why they are so silent. With a surprised look on their faces, the newbies asked Joseph to look above his head. When Joseph looked above his head, he saw a level up notification. He was surprised to see the notification because he and the newbies were not fighting any goblins, so it will be impossible for them to level up. Joseph knows that the only time one's level increases even though they are idle is when a party member is still fighting. Joseph immediately realized that Wu Jin is still alive and he is killing the goblins. The scene shifts and we see Wu Jin holding a torch while standing next to a large amount of wood. Wu Jin smiles and says that this is the most effective method of killing goblins. He says that no method can be as easy as the one he is about to use. He throws his torch at the large amount of wood. The woods began to burn at a fast rate. In the goblins' cave, the goblins noticed that a large amount of smoke was getting into the cave. The goblins began to suffocate to death due to the smoke. The goblins that were still alive picked themselves up and ran. Unfortunately for the goblins, when they arrived at the entrance of the cave, they found it covered with burning wood. They tried to force their way out of the cave, but they could not get out due to the fire. Wu Jin smiled when he saw how the goblins were struggling. He says that this is a tribute to the dead players. After the fire went out and the goblins were destroyed, Wu Jin looked around and noticed something weird. He brings out his whip and says that he expected to see its face after he burnt the other goblins. He wonders if the creature was hiding in another place. As he and his undead were about to walk away, a giant monster came out of the ground. With a look of anger on his face, Wu Jin told the monster that he was already getting tired of the dungeon. He thanks the monster, which is called a goblin champion, for coming out to fight him. While looking at the monster, Wu Jin said that a lot of newbies lost their lives in this dungeon in the past thanks to the goblin champion. He said that for a normal goblin dungeon to have a hidden boss is like having a grim reaper in the dungeon for newbies. He opens his inventory and brings out a sword. He said that the dungeon will no longer have any victims. When the undead soldier saw Wu Jin bring out his sword, it stood in front of Wu Jin. Wu Jin was surprised to see this. He wondered if the soldier was waiting for a chance to attack. The undead turned around and looked at Wu Jin with a cold gaze in its eyes. Wu Jin was surprised to see the look in the undead's eyes. He leaned on a tree and gave the goblin his sword. The goblin held the sword firmly and charged towards the goblin champion. It moved in between the legs of the goblin champion. It cut the calves of the goblin champion. Wu Jin was shocked to see this. The scene shifts and we see an event that took place in the past. A bunch of players are fighting a huge monster that was surrounded by fire. The players were frightened to see the monster. They could not believe that their guild wanted them to fight such a beast. The captain of the players told them to focus their attacks on its legs in order to increase their chances of winning. The captain of this players was Wu Jin. Wu Jin unsheathed his sword and focused his attacks on the monster's leg. After remembering the method he used to attack the giant monster, he became certain that his goblin soldier has copied his methods. The goblin champion fell on its knees after the undead destroyed its leg. When the undead saw that the goblin champion was on its knees, it moved to the blind spot of the goblin. Wu Jin was surprised to see this. He became certain that the undead was using his methods to fight. The undead jumped up and stabbed the goblin champion on its head just like Wu Jin did in his past life. Wu Jin was happy to see how his undead fought. He could not believe that his undead could copy his combat style. He said that he used all kinds of weapons in his past life. He was certain that no one in the Messiah Guild could defeat him in a one-on-one match. He was happy when he realized that his undeads will be able to copy his combat style. After the undead defeated the monster, Wu Jin received a notification from the system. He received a legendary rank skill from the agent of the Dark World. Wu Jin was surprised to see this. He could not believe that he was able to obtain this skill at his current level. The scene shifts and we see someone tell the manager that the dungeon is cleared. The manager was shocked to hear this. He immediately ran outside to confirm by himself. He was surprised to see Joseph and the newbies stepping out of the dungeon. He could not believe that the dungeon was cleared in a day. The medics and doctors immediately attended to Joseph and the newbies. The manager walked up to the players and asked them about Wu Jin. Joseph and the newbies did not know how to answer the manager. The manager assumed that Wu Jin was dead due to their silence. While everyone was quiet, one of the personnel tells the manager that someone else is stepping out of the dungeon. The manager and the players was shocked to hear this. Immediately, Wu Jin stepped out of the dungeon. The dungeon disappeared. Wu Jin did not stop to check up on the other guys. He walked towards the exit. The manager ran after Wu Jin. Joseph was shocked to see that Wu Jin was able to clear a dungeon by himself. He became curious about Wu Jin's identity. In the next scene, we see a woman in a television complaining about the tyranny of players. The woman said that desires of players are increasing because the players are the only ones who can close dungeons. She said that the only guild that is good is the Messiah Guild because they did not ask for compensation when they cleared the 5th floor dungeon. Joseph looked at his phone and found out that the news was only talking about the Messiah Guild. He was angry to see this. He told his friend that the news always make the other players look like trash who only care about money. His friend told him not to pay any attention to the news because this is what they always do. His friend asked him about the dungeon he currently cleared. Joseph told him that his experience in the dungeon was bad because of Wu Jin. His friend asked him to explain what he means. Joseph pointed at the injury on his head and told his friend that Wu Jin was the one who caused the injury. His friend was surprised to hear this. He asked Joseph if the rumor about Wu Jin is true. Joseph told him that it is. He told his friend that Wu Jin rushed into a herd of goblins because he wanted to get some items. He told his friend that he got injured when he tried to save Wu Jin. His friend was annoyed to hear this. He told Joseph to report Wu Jin to the guild so that he can be punished. Joseph told his friend to not worry about it. He told him that Wu Jin was probably desperate for money. His friend told him that he will spread the news about Wu Jin's behavior so that he won't act the same somewhere else. The scene shifts and we see Wu Jin looking at a board which had the images of his targets on it. He realized that he cannot get close to Se-jun because he is still weak. He knows that Se-jun will only have an interest in him once he is powerful. He removed one of the images on his board and said that he will use this method to bring some attention to himself. At the Phoenix Guild building, Wu Jin tells one of the managers that he would like to enter the Orc Hunter dungeon. The manager and his assistant were shocked to hear this. The assistant manager asked Wu Jin if he wants to enter the dungeon to redeem himself because of the rumors about him. Wu Jin did not understand what he was talking about. He told the assistant manager that he wants to enter the dungeon because he needs money. The manager was shocked to hear this. He told Wu Jin that while money is good, life is more important. He told Wu Jin that he can help him secure a loan if he really needs money. Wu Jin declined the manager's offer. He told the manager to not worry about him and just get the date for him to enter the dungeon. Wu Jin was surprised to hear that a bad rumor was spreading about him. He was happy that a rumor was spreading because most people will not want to partner with him, and he can now do things on his own. After Wu Jin left the building, the assistant manager told the manager that the rumors about Wu Jin seems to be true. The manager dismisses this idea and tells his assistant that rumors are simply rumors. He asked his assistant about the dungeon Wu Jin wants to enter. His assistant told him that after John Yong-gyu's group was annihilated, no one has conquered the dungeon. The manager asked his assistant about John Yong-gyu. His assistant told him that Yong-gyu is a rising star from Park Yong-won's faction. While looking down at Wu Jin from his office, the manager said that Wu Jin won't die a natural death if he steps into a dungeon which John Yong-gyu was not able to clear. He told his assistant to provide Wu Jin with enough support. With a smile on his face, Wu Jin said that he will have to join hands with a villain if he wants to kill the hero. The scene shifts and we see Wu Jin arrive at the side of the dungeon. He is greeted by the manager of the dungeon. The manager was shocked to see that Wu Jin came to the dungeon alone. He heard a rumor that Wu Jin was a Scrooge with a dirty personality. He assumed that this was the reason Wu Jin was not able to form a team with anyone. He could not believe that Wu Jin really wanted to enter the dungeon on his own. Of course, he did not really care if Wu Jin dies or survives. When Wu Jin stepped into the dungeon, a status window appeared in front of him. The system told him that the dungeon is a C-rank dungeon and it is for level 13 and below. Wu Jin knows that a C-rank dungeon could be too much for his level, but he is certain that he can change his situation if he summons an undead to assist him. He brought out his sword to prepare. Immediately he brought out his sword. An orc attacked him from behind. Wu Jin dodged the attack by moving in between the orc's legs. He attacked the orc's leg. Unfortunately for him, he was only able to leave a mark because an orc's skin is too thick for it to be cut easily. With a smile on his face, he realized that he will die if the orc is able to land an attack on him. He is certain that he will have a chance at clearing this dungeon if he is able to kill this orc and turn it into an undead. The orc attacked Wu Jin with its huge stick. Wu Jin dodged the attack, but a stone hit him and made a cut on his face. He moved to the back of the monster and began to attack its leg. He made several cuts on the monster's leg at a crazy speed. When he was done, he moved away from the monster. The orc did not understand why Wu Jin left it alone. Before it could make another move, its leg fell apart and the orc fell. Jin told the orc that a monster who has lost its legs is no longer powerful. Immediately he said this, he killed the orc and summoned an undead soldier. In the next scene, we see two men talking. The bald man among the men smiled when he looked at a file. The other man asked the bald man about the reason he is smiling. He asked the bald man about the reason he has been looking at the file for a while. He asked the bald man if he wants him to get a weird item again for his business. The bald man smiled and gave his friend the file he was looking at. The file contained information about Kim Woo-jin. The other man could not believe what he was reading about Woo-jin. He could not believe that Woo-jin cleared a dungeon all by himself. The bald man told his friend that Woo-jin has entered his second dungeon alone. He asked his friend if Woo-jin is simply overconfident. The other man could not believe what he was seeing in the file. It did not make sense to him that a newbie was able to clear a dungeon on his own. He told the bald man that he suffered a lot before he was able to clear a dungeon. He asked the bald man if the information was provided by a trusted source. The man asked the bald man if he is gullible. While the two men were talking, a young lady stepped into the room with some coffee. With a horrifying look on her face, the lady asked the man if her report was bad. The man was scared to hear the lady's voice. He told the lady, whose name is Secretary Lee, that her report is perfect. He asked her about where she found such high-quality information. Secretary Lee dropped the coffee on the table with so much force that it made a loud sound. The man was scared to see this. Secretary Lee told the man that the reason the report is perfect is because she is good at her job. The bald man picked up one of the coffees and told the other man that Secretary Lee's information is 100% trustworthy. Immediately he said this, he noticed some instant coffees on the tray which contained the coffee. The man was shocked to see the instant coffees. He screamed at Secretary Lee and told her that he does not like instant coffee. He reminded her that he told her to not buy instant coffee. He asked Secretary Lee to give him an excuse for her behavior. With a calm look on her face, Secretary Lee told the bald man, who happens to be her boss, that she obtained the instant coffee the last time they had a meeting at the Phoenix Guild. She told the man that she made her report on a reusable paper. After hearing how Secretary Lee saved a lot of money, the bald man became calm. He told Secretary Lee that instant coffee is the best, while looking like an incarnate of Buddha. He told the other man that Secretary Lee's information is 100% trustworthy. The man was annoyed to see how stingy the bald man is. He believed that the reason the bald man became bald at a young age is because he is so stingy. After they finished their coffee, the bald man asked Secretary Lee about her progress in purchasing dungeons. Secretary Lee told the bald man that she found some good dungeons, but they were too expensive. She told her boss that she is still looking for other dungeons. The other man was surprised to hear that the bald man was purchasing dungeons. He asked the bald man about the dungeon he already owns. With a bright look on his face, the bald man told the other man that one dungeon is not enough for him to clear. The other man was shocked to hear this. He told the bald man that he just came out of a dungeon yesterday. He told the bald man that he wants to rest well before he enters another dungeon. The bald man dismissed the man's complaints and tells him that a person who is too rested will become lazy. The man was annoyed to hear this. The scene shifts and we see an orc destroy one of Woo-jin's skeleton soldiers while sitting on the corpses of several orcs. Woo-jin said that the durability of his skeleton soldier is poor because his skill is too low. He placed his hand on one of the corpses and said that he learned something important from Johann George in his past life. He summoned another skeleton soldier. He said that as long as his magical stats allows it, he will be able to summon numerous number of skeleton soldiers. Immediately he said this, we see a large amount of dead orcs around him. After Woo-jin defeated the orcs in the area, he leveled up and his poison blood skill increased to level 2. Woo-jin was surprised that he only leveled up once after defeating the orcs in the area. He decided to stop fighting the normal orcs and focus on the orc hunter. After searching the dungeon, Woo-jin was surprised that he could not find the orc hunter anywhere. He made a map of the dungeon on the ground to check where he has been to and to deduce the location of the orc hunter. After searching the dungeon, Woo-jin realized that the orc hunter did not move with the other orcs and it was not in any group. While trying to guess the location of the orc hunter, he noticed that his skeleton soldier was also looking at the map as if it recognized it. Woo-jin did not understand why his soldier was looking at the map. After realizing that the orc hunter does not move with other orcs, he realized that he won't be able to get any skeleton soldiers while he is fighting the orc hunter. Woo-jin realized that the only skeleton soldier he currently has is the one next to him. After guessing the location of the orc hunter, Woo-jin and his soldier decided to hunt it down. The scene shifts and we see an orc dragging the dead body of another orc. This orc is the orc hunter. The scene shifts and we see Woo-jin hiding behind a boulder while holding an arrow that contains his blood. He says that it will be stupid to fight the orc hunter without a plan because it is a dungeon boss with a physical ability that exceeds the average monster. He is certain that he will stand a chance against the monster if he can pierce the monster's skin with his arrow that is coated with his blood. Woo-jin nodded his head to signal his skeleton soldier. Immediately he did this. The skeleton soldier came out of hiding to confront the orc hunter. The orc hunter was annoyed to see the skeleton soldier. It moved back to create some space between it and the skeleton soldier. The skeleton soldier immediately charged at the orc hunter. He attacked the orc hunter with its sword, but the orc hunter blocked it. The orc hunter held the skeleton soldier and tried to bite through its bones. Woo-jin came out of hiding to get a clear shot at the orc hunter. When he saw the bloody red eyes of the orc, he became certain that this is the orc hunter who hunts other orcs. While the orc hunter was focused on his skeleton soldier, Woo-jin shot his arrow at the orc's eyes. The orc hunter got pushed back when the arrow hit its eyes. It immediately grabbed the arrow and removed it from its eyes, unfortunately for it. The poison had already entered its blood. Woo-jin realized that the weaker the area his poison touches, the faster his poison spreads. The orc screamed in pain and lost control of its legs. Woo-jin knew that level 2 of poison blood was not lethal enough to kill monsters, but he was certain that the poison would weaken the monster. His skeleton soldier moved close to the orc hunter and cut off its head. Woo-jin received a notification from the system the moment he killed the orc hunter. The system told Woo-jin that he has leveled up and he will return back to Earth in 1 hour. Woo-jin looked around his surrounding and found the corpse of dead humans. He immediately realized that the orc hunter ate everything that was in its way. He wondered if John Yonggyu's corpse was among the corpses that the orc hunter killed. While looking at the different skeleton there, he found an unusual skeleton. The injury that was on the skeleton's body was not caused by the orc hunter. Woo-jin realized that this person was attacked from behind. The person who attacked him is someone who is used to murder. While Woo-jin was not certain if the murder was intentional or not, he knew that if the murder was done by someone in Park Yong-won faction, then it might be intentional. Woo-jin sighed and wondered about how he is going to find Yonggyu's corpses. He wanted to get something that could help him get close to Park Yong-won. While looking around, he sees a shiny object in a cave. He moved close to the cave. When he arrived at the entrance, he realized that the cave entrance is one that is only big enough to allow one person pass through. In the cave, Woo-jin sees a skeleton with an armor and a sword. Woo-jin was surprised to see that this corpse was not damaged like the others, and the sword which it is holding is very clean. He realized that this person must have run away while his comrades were eaten alive. Woo-jin noticed that the corpse kept a tally next to it to count the days until its death. He smiled when he realized that the corpse is John Yonggyu. He said that there is no place more suitable for Yonggyu to die other than here. While searching Yonggyu's corpse, a book falls from Yonggyu's body. While flipping through the book, Woo-jin finds a page containing the blacklist of Park Yonggyu's faction. Woo-jin smiled when he saw the names in the list. He could not believe that he would get something this valuable. He said that he will put it to good use. The scene shifts, and we see that Woo-jin has obtained a legendary skill. Woo-jin was surprised to see that he obtained a new skill. The skill called Eyes of Anubis is one that allows him to take a glimpse into the memory of the dead. Woo-jin was very happy to see the new skill which came at the right moment. He was certain that luck is on his side. He said that the dead cannot speak, but now it does not matter to him. He placed his hand on Yonggyu's skull and his eyes began to glow. A black and white light came out of his eyes and entered Yonggyu's eyes. Immediately the light entered Yonggyu's eyes. Yonggyu's memories entered Woo-jin's head. Woo-jin saw how Yonggyu left his comrades and ran away. He ran into the cave and began to panic. Woo-jin also saw how Yonggyu used to hunt people in dungeons. He told the person he was about to kill that he is safe because Park Yong-won will own the Phoenix Guild one day. After seeing this memory, Woo-jin became disconnected from Yonggyu. After using his skill, Woo-jin got a severe headache. He looked at Yonggyu's skull and said that looking at a dead man's past is not pleasant. The skill also drained a lot of magic from him. Thanks to the information Woo-jin got from Yonggyu and the list, Woo-jin became certain that he will be able to get Park Yong-won. The scene shifts and we see a man getting beaten up. Someone asked the man about how he allowed someone else to clear the orc hunter dungeon. The man apologized to this person. He told the person that he will take care of Woo-jin. The person who was reading a newspaper asked the man how he is going to take care of a newbie who cleared a dungeon by himself. The man told his secretary called Secretary Kim to take care of the man. Secretary Kim apologized to the man reading the newspaper. She told the man who was her boss that she would take care of the problem. Immediately she said this. Two huge men entered the room to drag the beaten man away. The beaten man begged the man reading the newspaper to not kill him. He told the man to give him another chance. The man reading the newspaper said that Wu Jin is competent for conquering a dungeon by himself. He said that Wu Jin is not super amazing. His secretary said that Wu Jin does not have a good reputation in the guild. She told her boss that Wu Jin left his party alone in his first dungeon and he kept all the rewards for himself. Secretary Kim told her boss that all this information about Wu Jin are simply rumors. The man told her that it does not matter if these are rumors because if Wu Jin does not have a good reputation, he won't be able to party with anyone and he won't be able to move forward. While he was speaking, someone tells the man that Wu Jin is here to see him through a telecom. The man drops his paper and we find out that the man is Park Yong-won. Yong-won said that Wu Jin has a lot of courage for him to walk into the lion's den by himself. The scene shifts and we see the manager and his assistant discussing. The assistant manager told the manager that the Phoenix Guild was able to acquire 20 slots in the A+ rank 1 floor dungeon. The assistant manager informed his boss that Park Yong-won faction and 2 other factions are fiercely competing for the 20 empty slots. The assistant manager told his boss that even if each factions get 6 slots each, the 3 factions will still fight for the remaining 2 slots. The manager was annoyed to hear this. His assistant told him that the 3 factions still haven't come to an agreement. The assistant manager told his boss that because the dungeon is A+ rank dungeon, there is a chance that a rare item might appear, and due to the fact that the dungeon is a 1-floor dungeon, the efficacy is good as well. The manager realized that the 3 factions won't give up on the 2 slots because of their confidence. He was annoyed because the people in this factions don't even know what happens in a dungeon. He removed his tie out of frustration and asked his assistant if there is anyone who wants the 2 slots that is not from the 3 factions. His assistant told him that no other person has applied for the 2 slots. The manager was not shocked to hear this. He knew that nobody wants to enter a dungeon without being part of a faction. While thinking of what to do, the manager gets a call from Park Yong-won. The assistant manager was surprised to see this. He did not understand why Park Yong-won would call when things were already complicated. The manager was shocked to hear what Park Yong-won said. He got up from his chair and called out Kim Woo-jin's name. The assistant manager was shocked to see how the manager reacted. He did not understand why the manager called out Woo-jin's name. After the manager ended the call, the assistant manager asked about what is going on. The manager told him that Wu Jin is asking to be put into one of the remaining 2 slots without the other factions knowing. The manager believed that Wu Jin would be perfect for a slot because he likes to work alone and the other factions would not really care about him. The assistant manager asked his boss if Wu Jin has joined Park Yong-won's faction. The manager told him that Park Yong-won might just be using Wu Jin as a card that will be thrown away after he is done in the dungeon. The manager told his assistant that they should not jump into conclusions recklessly. The assistant manager asked his boss about what they are going to do about the remaining slot. He told his boss that the 3 factions will still fight over the slot. The manager revealed to his assistant that Park Yong-won is willing to give up on the remaining slot if Wu Jin is given a slot. All they have to do is mediate things between the other 2 factions. The manager knew that Park Yong-won is a great strategist. He knew that Yong-won might be giving up on the slot in order to benefit next time. He became curious about how Wu Jin was able to meet Yong-won. The scene shifts and we see Yong-won and Secretary Kim talking. Secretary Kim asked her boss about why he accepted Wu Jin's proposal. Yong-won told his secretary that he was surprised that Wu Jin would bring the blacklist and John Yong-gyu's tag to him. He revealed to Secretary Kim that his faction does not have any more useful people, so Wu Jin is perfect. With a smile on his face, he told his secretary that Wu Jin is someone that he can manipulate and throw away once he is no longer useful. 1 hour earlier, we see Wu Jin handing over the blacklist to Yong-won. Yong-won picked up the blacklist and asked Wu Jin if he knows what is inside. Wu Jin told Yong-won that he read the content of the book. Yong-won asked Wu Jin if he came to blackmail in order to get money. He smiled and asked Wu Jin if he believes that he can blackmail him. Immediately he said this, his bodyguards surrounded Wu Jin. Wu Jin told him that he came to give a proposal. He told Yong-won that he wants to enter the A+ dungeon. Yong-won was shocked to hear this. He laughed and called Wu Jin a funny bastard. With a serious look on his face, he asked Wu Jin if he is aware of the dungeon he is talking about. Wu Jin told him that he knows about the dungeon. He told Yong-won that the Phoenix Guild and Messiah Guild are fighting over the limited slots of the dungeon. Yong-won smiled and told Wu Jin that he is insane. He told Wu Jin that he will accept his request under one condition. At Gyeonggu University, a meeting is held to educate the players about the A+ dungeon. Wu-jin wears a hoodie and stands at the back of the hall in order to avoid any attention. A man tells the player that the dungeon contains 1,000 orcs. The dungeon is called Colony of the Orc Champion, and the only way to clear the dungeon is by killing the 1,000 orc and the Orc Champion. Wu-jin remembered that the people who survived this dungeon in the past were less than 70. In other words, almost half of the participants were killed in the dungeon. Wu knew that only the elite players from each group were gathered in this meeting. It did not make sense to him that half of the elite players here will die from fighting monsters. He became certain that some of the players were murdered. He knew that people might kill each other to reduce their competition and steal items from other players. Wu-jin remembered that the reward for killing the Orc Champion is an item called the Orc Rod's Fong. The reward was given to the Messiah Guild for their huge contribution in the dungeon. Wu-jin did not know anything about it, but it did not make sense to him that the Messiah Guild received the reward. He realized that Se-jun was already evil when he received the reward. Wu-jin stepped out of the hall and decided to leave the meeting. On his way out, Wu-jin realized that even if Se-jun was the one behind the incident, he would never use the Messiah Guild to commit evil publicly. He realized that Se-jun must have planted a spy in another guild. The scene shifts, and we see the players gather to enter the dungeon. The press came to the gate of the dungeon to get a picture of the different guilds. The first guild that entered the dungeon is the Messiah Guild. The next is the Phoenix Guild, the Lion Guild, and the Skull Guild stepped in after the Phoenix Guild. The last person to enter was Wu-jin. Before stepping into the dungeon, Wu-jin decided that he will acquire the Orc Rod's Fong in this life. After they stepped into the dungeon, the Messiah Guild team leader asked the members of his guild to line up at the front. The Messiah Guild members immediately followed his orders. The other guilds were surprised by how quickly the Messiah Guild members got into formation. The Phoenix Guild team leader said that it does not matter if the Messiah Guild are the first to act. He said that there is 1,000 orcs in the dungeon. While the guilds were arranging themselves, an orc comes out from a forest. The tank of the Messiah Guild said that his guild will fight the orc. He activated a skill called Fighter of Tenacious Life to provoke the orc. Immediately he activated the skill. The orc rushed to attack him. The orc tried to punch the man, but the man used his shield to block the attack. The orc was surprised to see that the man blocked its attack. While the man held the orc down, a woman casted a spell to restrain the monster. Immediately she activated her spell. Giant vines came out the ground and held onto the monster. The vines strangled the orc to death. Immediately the Messiah Guild killed the monster. The ground began to tremble. The players wondered if it was an earthquake. A man told the other players that it is not an earthquake. He told them that there is something at the back of the forest. Immediately the players heard this. They got into a defensive position. Suddenly, they see several orcs come out of the forest and rush towards them. The players immediately attack the orcs. The magicians used a spell to create boulders that crushed the orcs. The orcs became slow due to the boulders that came out of nowhere. The other players used the chance to attack them. While the other players were fighting, Wu-jin looked down at them from a tall tree. He smiled and said that no one will notice if he leaves the group right now. He said that it is time for him to move. Guys, we have come to the end of our video. If you guys want part 4 of this video, let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to like and smash that subscribe button for more recaps. See you guys later.